Hello, welcome to this conversation about how to calm your mind and what to do if it doesn't work, which I've heard from a lot of you that you've tried many different strategies and those racing thoughts keep happening. The looping mind keeps happening, and it's hard to figure out how to make things chill out. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. For those of you who are new here or don't know me, my name is Jody. I actually have a lot of experience as a private therapist, and I've moved into also the health sphere, and I help women get to the root causes of anxiety. So using a combination of mind and body perspective to figure out what's underlying the anxiety. I've also had a pretty incredibly intense experience of anxiety from the past 5 years myself, and so I've been healing that. And so I get to share with you some of the strategies that have worked on my own healing journey. And so today what I want to talk about is what a lot of you struggle with is those looping thoughts and those racing thoughts and understanding how to calm the mind. I've heard from some of you that it feels like, you just can't do it, or you need to try hard enough, or you're not sure what strategy to try, because let me tell you, those looping thoughts can be really painful. The other day, I actually had some mold exposure by accident, and that triggered some crazy looping thoughts for me for like a period of, I'd say, an hour to 2 hours. And I knew when it happened that it was from mold exposure, so I was able to put that into context for myself. But I absolutely understand how hard it can be when those worries keep racing and racing and racing. And oftentimes there's a part of us that knows like, hey, that worry doesn't quite make sense, and yet we can't let go of it. We're holding on to that looping worry, whether it's, I might get sick from COVID, or driving is really stressful. And then we find that you can't really be in the moment, and you can't pay attention to what's going on with your children or your family or whatever it is, because you're in your mind battling out those looping thoughts. And so that can be really, really unbearable. So if you're listening to this, give me a heart or a like if this is something that you're struggling with. So what's really important to understand when we're thinking about looping thoughts is getting to the trigger of what is going on, which is typically it's an overactive nervous system. So if we go back to fight and flight, or rest and digest, what's happening when your mind is looping is you've entered into that fight and flight response. And part of that flight and fight response is racing thoughts. And so what we want to do, one of the strategies I'm going to talk about today, is how to calm the nervous system down. And so everything that we're talking about when we're thinking about anxiety is a different into calming the nervous system down. So therapy calms the nervous system down. Yoga calms the nervous system down. An Epsom salt bath calms the nervous system down. Getting rid of that giant worm that's crawling around in your intestine will also calm your nervous system down. And so what we want to think about is what is at the root of that nervous system being overactive. And for a lot of people, it's a combination of mind and body. And one of the strategies I wanted to talk about today was meditation. So what to do to calm it down, one of the ways is meditation. So let me know if you've tried meditation. So meditation can be really, really powerful for some people, depending on where you are in your healing journey. And so one of the free apps that I like to use is Insight Timer. So if you've used Insight Timer or heard of Insight Timer, just give me a like or let me know in the comments. So this app is actually free. It sometimes doesn't look like it's free, but it's absolutely free. And it's a really great way for you to explore mindfulness practice. So meditation is not about clearing all the thoughts out of your head. Mindfulness practice is about becoming aware that the thoughts are there and slowing down your breath and bringing your focus out of your head and into your breathing and into your body. So really focusing on that. And so for a chunk of people with anxiety, this is going to be, I see a heart there, that's awesome. This is going to be really, really effective for calming anxiety down. And this was actually the case for me when I did this mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And I actually didn't even do it for anxiety at the time, but I did it for pain issues, and I did an hour a day, which sounds intense, of this body scan, and it was phenomenal in terms of its ability to calm my body down at that point. Now, what happened is I crossed into this really intense level of anxiety, and when I did mindfulness practice, then it was actually too intense for me to do, and it made me more anxious. So there's two camps. There's the camp of women who really love meditation, and that can be super effective for calming things down. And then there's the camp of women who they try meditation and they're so aware of how panicked their body is that it actually makes things worse. So if this is you, just give me a heart or a like as well, because there can be one or the other. And what I found is that individuals who really struggle with the meditation component, the way to be mindful is actually to move mindfully. And this way, you're not necessarily sitting in your anxious body, but you're moving through it and you're still calming the nervous system down. And one of my favorite ways to do that is actually with a yoga practice. So a very gentle yoga practice that's going to allow you to keep moving and yet focus on your breath. So to kind of summarize what we've chatted about today, it's a bit of a reframe. So the first thing I talked about was that, when we're anxious and when we have those racing thoughts, it's often because the nervous system is overstimulated for a variety of different reasons. And so we want to find strategies to calm the nervous system down and to remove the stressor. So one of the strategies you can use to calm the nervous system down is mindfulness practice. And this can take place using insight timer by just calming the system down, but it can also take place by mindfully moving. Now, if you're finding that these things don't necessarily work for you, or they work temporarily but not permanently, then you want to dig into the physiological causes of anxiety. And I talked a little bit earlier in this video about, for me, what triggered the racing thoughts earlier a couple weeks ago was an exposure to mold. So that's a very physiological source of that, right? So I can use mindfulness or mindful movement to calm my nervous system down once it's triggered. But what's really important for me to figure out and understand is, what is the trigger and how do I address it? So for me, I know that mold is a trigger for that kind of response. And so I'm very careful, clearly not that day, about where I go and binding that mold out of my system. But what's a trigger for me and my racing thoughts could be very different than what's a trigger for you and your racing thoughts. So while mindfulness can help to calm the mind and kind of remove the trigger from a mindset piece, it doesn't necessarily get at the physiological triggers, and it's really important for you to think about both. So this is something I'm actually going to be talking about in an upcoming webinar that I'm doing next Thursday. I'm going to go into the nervous system and what some of those biological triggers can be. So if you're interested in more information, I'm going to be actually posting the link below, and you can sign up to hear more information next week. If you have any questions, post them below. Bye.